The sun hung low over the Miller farm, casting long, tired shadows across the dry, cracked earth. Caleb Miller wiped the sweat from his forehead with a stained, dusty rag. At 55 years old, he felt every bit of the weariness in his bones. His back ached from years of hard labor, and his heart felt even heavier. The drought had lasted for months. The corn stalks were brown and brittle, standing like skeletons in the field, and the creek that once fed his land had turned into a muddy, dry ditch. Caleb was a widower. He had raised his daughter, Lydia, all on his own since she was a baby. Now, at 10 years old, Lydia was the light of his life. She was a quiet child, observant and kind, always helping around the house with a smile. But Caleb felt like he was failing her every single day. He couldn't buy her new toys, he couldn't keep the farmhouse in good repair, and he struggled to put enough food on the table. Every night, in the quiet of his small, drafty bedroom, he sat at his kitchen table, staring at piles of unpaid bills. "I am trying my best," he would whisper to the empty room. "I just need a break." He often looked at the old photographs of his wife on the mantel. They seemed to mock him with memories of better times when the rain fell and the harvest was plenty. He felt a deep, gnawing guilt, as if he were losing the family home he was supposed to protect for his child. He felt small, ineffective, and trapped by circumstances. Lydia, however, saw things differently. She watched her father's slumped shoulders and his trembling hands. She noticed the way he would skip lunch so she could have a bigger portion of beans and cornbread. She didn't want him to feel alone. She spent her days walking the perimeter of their land, thinking about how to help. She felt that if she could just take one small burden off his shoulders, he might finally be able to stop worrying so much. The internal battle Caleb fought was invisible to everyone. He felt the weight of every broken fence post and every overdue notice. Sometimes he would stand in the middle of the field at dusk, looking at the horizon, wondering if he should simply give up and move to the city where work was steady. But the memory of his promise to his late wife to keep the land in the family kept him tethered to this stubborn soil. He wanted to be a hero in his daughter's eyes, yet he felt like he was constantly failing the test of life. He often wondered if Lydia noticed his tears when he thought she was asleep, or if she understood that his silence was just a man struggling to find a way to make ends meet. One Tuesday, the heat was particularly brutal. Caleb was out in the barn, trying to fix the old, stubborn irrigation pump. It was a hopeless job. The machine was rusted through, and he knew he needed a new part. A specific, expensive hydraulic valve that cost more money than he had ever seen in his tiny savings account. He had been staring at the broken engine for days, his heart full of doubt and fear. He felt as though the farm was dying, and with it, his hopes for Lydia's future. He even considered selling the land, a thought that made his stomach turn, but he felt he had no other option to give Lydia a life away from this suffocating dust. As he worked, he heard a sound outside. It was the distinct, rhythmic clinking of metal. Caleb wiped his greasy hands on his pants, stood up with a groan, and walked to the barn door. Through the hazy, golden light of the afternoon, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Lydia was standing near the edge of the property, near the old wooden gate. A young boy from the neighbor's farm was there too. Caleb squinted, shielding his eyes from the glare. Lydia was handing over her bicycle, her only possession of any real value. It was a sturdy, blue bike that her mother had saved up to buy for her before she passed away. It was Lydia's only way to play, her only way to have any fun outside of these dusty, lonely fields. She looked so small against the vast, empty horizon. Her shoulders slumped slightly as she let go of the handlebars. Caleb watched as the boy handed Lydia a small, thin stack of crumpled dollar bills. Lydia tucked the money into her tiny pocket with great care, and the boy pedaled away on her bike, disappearing into the heat haze. A hot, sharp anger flared in Caleb's chest. He felt betrayed. He worked himself to the bone every single day for her, and she was selling her memories for quick cash. Was she being reckless? Did she not understand how hard he was struggling to keep everything together? The disappointment stung more than the heat. He felt like his efforts were being thrown back in his face. He felt like his own fatherhood was being questioned by her choice. Caleb marched toward the gate, his boots heavy and loud in the dry dirt. "Lydia!" he shouted. His voice was rougher and louder than he meant it to be. Lydia turned, her face calm and peaceful. She didn't look guilty. She didn't look ashamed of what she had done. She just looked at him with steady, kind, 10-year-old eyes. "Dad," she said softly, her voice barely a whisper against the wind. "What were you doing?" Caleb asked, gesturing toward the empty road where the bike had vanished. "Why would you sell that? You know that bike was all you had. Do you have any idea how much that hurts me? I'm trying to provide for us. And you're just throwing things away." Caleb felt his throat tighten. He was breathing hard, his face flushed with frustration. He felt like a total failure. He thought she was selling it to buy candy or some other trivial thing that would be gone in a day. The pain of the drought and his own self-doubt came out as anger, a defensive wall built to protect his fragile ego. Lydia didn't speak right away. She walked over to him, her expression soft and gentle. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, worn envelope. She held it out to her father with both hands, her face showing nothing but love. "Dad," she said, her voice small but steady, "I didn't sell the bike because I didn't want it. I sold it because I wanted to help you." Caleb hesitated, then took the envelope. He opened it slowly, his fingers trembling. Inside was the money from the sale, and beneath the money was a torn-out piece of paper from an old store catalogue. It was the page for the exact hydraulic valve he needed to fix the irrigation pump. He had left the catalogue open on the kitchen table for days, sighing over the price every time he walked by. Caleb's hands began to shake violently. The anger he felt just a moment ago vanished, completely replaced by a crushing, beautiful weight of humility. "I saw you looking at the part, Dad," Lydia said quietly, looking up at him. "I know you think you've failed because the crops are dry. But you haven't failed. You work harder than anyone I know. I just wanted to help you fix the pump so we could keep the farm." Caleb looked at the empty spot where the bike used to be, and then he looked at his daughter. He was speechless. He opened his mouth to apologize, but no words could come out. He had been so worried about the physical struggle, the corn and the money, that he had completely missed how much his daughter cared for him. He had been busy feeling sorry for himself, while his daughter was busy trying to save their home. He pulled Lydia into his arms, burying his face in her hair. Tears, hot and real, tracked through the dust on his face. He wasn't a failure. He was a father who had been blessed with a daughter whose heart was made of pure gold. "Lydia," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion, "I am so sorry. I am so proud of you." That evening, they didn't have much to eat, but for the first time in years, the house felt full. The stress of the drought and the bills didn't disappear overnight, but the heavy, dark weight on Caleb's heart was gone. He realized that as long as they had each other, they were never truly empty-handed. They sat on the porch as the sun went down, talking about the future, no longer afraid of the dry fields. They knew that with hard work and determination, they could overcome anything. If this story touched your heart, please help us spread the message. Like this video, subscribe for more real-life stories. Share this with someone who needs a little hope today. Comment below, who is someone that has supported you through a tough time? Thank you for watching.